The night was cold and silent in the back alleys of Sector 9. Neon lights buzzed above the empty street, flickering with weak energy. Most people had already gone home, doors locked, curtains drawn, but Kyle stayed late again. Cleaning the floors of the intergalactic hospital, he was just a human janitor, nothing more. Invisible to the rich and powerful inside, he mopped the floors, gathered trash, and said nothing until he heard a soft sound, a scratch. A cough, maybe a whimper. It came from outside the emergency exit, behind the dumpsters. Kyle paused, unsure if he imagined it. Then it came again, a weak noise, barely alive. He dropped his mop and walked to the metal door. With a shaky breath, he pushed it open and stepped into the dark. Behind the building, under the silver glow of a broken security lamp, he saw her, a small figure. Wrapped in a medical sheet, shaking violently on the cold ground, she wasn't human. That much was clear. Her skin was pale blue, and her long arms were too thin for her body. One eye was swollen shut. The other looked at him with pure fear. She tried to speak, but only a dry gasp came out. Her hospital ID band was still on her wrist. Kyle knelt slowly, not wanting to scare her. He noticed bruises, needle marks, dried blood on her arms. "Hey," he whispered. "It's okay." Of course, she didn't understand his words, but she looked at him, and for a second, she didn't look away. Kyle looked around, expecting someone to come back for her, but the alley was empty. The emergency exit had been closed behind him. She had been dumped here. Discarded like trash, he stood and stormed back inside, heart pounding. He ran to the front desk where a nurse was yawning behind a screen. "There's someone behind the building," Kyle said. "A patient." The nurse rolled her eyes and didn't look up. "If she's out there, it means she's been discharged," she said flatly. "But she's barely alive," Kyle snapped. The nurse shrugged. She was classified unfit for further care. Not worth the effort. Kyle's mouth fell open. "You just left her outside. She's not even from a recognized species." The nurse replied, "We're not obligated." Kyle returned to the alley, fists clenched. The girl had tried to crawl toward the wall, but collapsed again. He knelt beside her and gently lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, like a broken bird. Her breath was shallow, but still there. Kyle looked at the hospital behind him, its tall, shining windows cold and uncaring. Then he looked down at the girl, her head resting against his chest. He had no medical training, no idea what species she was, but he couldn't leave her to die alone in the dark. He thought for a moment, trying to remember something, anything, and then it hit him, the old vet outside town. A strange woman who once helped an alien pet after it was hit by a shuttle. Kyle had cleaned her floor once during a contract job. She wasn't a doctor, but she didn't turn away the helpless. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around the girl. Her lips moved, whispering something he couldn't understand. Tears were leaking from her one open eye. Kyle whispered back, "I don't know what you're saying, but I won't leave you." She blinked once, slow and weak. Kyle stood, adjusting his grip, and started walking. He left the hospital behind, walking into the freezing night with the girl in his arms. Cars flew above, but no one noticed, no one cared. His legs ached. His heart raced, but he didn't stop. Every step felt like a silent promise to keep her alive. And as snowflakes began to fall, Kyle turned down a dark road, the road that led to the old vet's broken sign. Whatever happened next, he was all she had now. The wind howled through the narrow road as Kyle carried the alien girl in his arms. Her skin felt colder than snow, and her breathing was slow. He held her tighter and kept walking past flickering signs and closed stalls. No one looked at him. No one wanted to. He reached the edge of the city where the metal buildings ended and wild land began. There stood an old shack with a dented roof and a faded sign that read, "Harris Veterinary Care." The lights inside were dim. He knocked on the rusty door with his elbow, since his hands were full. For a moment, there was silence. Then came slow footsteps from behind the door. An old woman opened it with sleepy eyes and a messy coat. She looked at Kyle. Then at the creature in his arms, her eyes narrowed like she was scanning both of them. "This ain't no dog," she said in a scratchy voice. "I know," Kyle said as he stepped closer, "but she's dying and no one else will help." The woman crossed her arms and looked again. Then with a heavy sigh, she opened the door wider. "Bring her in," she said. Kyle stepped into the small room that smelled like old medicine and fur. There were cages along the walls and metal trays. Filled with tools, the woman pointed to a table and Kyle gently placed the girl there. She moaned softly and twitched as if in pain. "Where'd you find her?" the vet asked while washing her hands. "Outside the hospital," Kyle replied. "They threw her out like garbage." The vet pulled a lamp closer and examined the girl's wounds. She pressed a few spots on the alien's neck and chest. The girl flinched and her eyes opened slightly. She tried to speak again, but nothing came out. The vet muttered under her breath. "She's lost a lot of fluid, organs are slowing, but there's something strange about her body. Her blood isn't normal." Kyle stepped forward. "What do you mean?" The vet opened a drawer and took out a needle and a small device. "She's got tissue structure I've never seen, but something about her is familiar. Let me run a test." She drew some of the girl's blood and placed it into a scanning tool. While it processed, she began cleaning the wounds. Her hands moved fast but careful, like someone who had done this for decades. The machine beeped and the vet froze her eyes, scanned the result. She said nothing for a long moment. "What is it, Kyle?" asked the vet. Turned the screen toward him. "There's human DNA in this, mixed with something else. Something old and undocumented. This girl's blood is half human." Kyle stepped back in shock. "But she's not. She doesn't look like us." "Doesn't matter," the vet said. "Some lab somewhere tried something. This girl wasn't born, she was made." The girl stirred again and whispered a soft sound. It almost sounded like help. Kyle took her hand. Her fingers were long and cold. "I'm here," he said quietly. "You're not alone." The vet looked at them both, and her face softened. "I've treated beasts with 3 heads, a lizard who grew wings, but this is something else. You sure you want to help her, because this might get you into trouble?" Kyle nodded. "I didn't ask for this, but she needs someone." The vet rolled up her sleeves. "Then let's not waste time. She needs heat, protein, and whatever this wound is on her side, it needs to be sealed." She turned on a heating pod and placed it beside the girl. She injected a strange thick fluid into a vein. Kyle watched as the girl's breathing began to calm. Her color returned slightly. The machine above her blinked green for the first time. "She's still got a long way to go," the vet said. "But she's a fighter, and now she's got you." Outside the shack, a tiny red light blinked on a power pole. Someone had tracked the girl's blood. Someone knew she was still alive, and they were coming. Morning light touched the edge of the hills as Kyle sat beside the old exam table. The alien girl lay wrapped in a silver blanket. Her chest rose and fell, slowly but steady now. Her hand was still in his. He hadn't slept. He didn't want to leave her side. The vet moved quietly around the room. She was running more tests. The strange blood sample had changed everything. She didn't say much, but her eyes were serious now. She kept looking at the scans like they didn't make sense. Finally, she spoke. "This girl's not just part human. She has markers I've only seen in deep space creatures, but they shouldn't be in the same body." Kyle looked up. "What does that mean? Is she dangerous?" The vet shook her head slowly. "No, but someone made her this way, and someone went through a lot to keep it secret." She turned the screen toward Kyle. "There's a chemical in her blood. It suppresses brain signals. It keeps her calm, or maybe under control." Kyle frowned. "They drugged her." "Maybe worse than that." The vet said. "They designed her to obey or stay silent. It's wearing off now. She might remember things soon, as if hearing them." The alien girl moved her head. She blinked slowly and looked around. Her voice cracked, but this time she said something clearer. "Not go back, please." Kyle leaned close. "You won't, I promise. You're safe here." She stared at him with tired eyes, then turned to the vet. "Mother's gone. Fire lab. Run." The vet took notes quickly. "She's remembering fragments. She was in a lab. There was a fire. She escaped. But what? Mother's more like her." The girl raised her weak hand and pointed to the stars. "Others still there, still hurt." Kyle felt something heavy in his chest. This wasn't just about one girl. This was bigger. "How many?" he asked softly. She didn't answer. She closed her eyes again. Tears ran down the sides of her face. The vet stepped back. "We need to hide her, and soon." Kyle looked confused. "Why, who's coming?" The vet opened a drawer and pulled out a small, blinking cube. "This tracker wasn't here last night. It's buried in her shoulder. I think they turned it on when they lost her. Someone knows she's alive now." Kyle clenched his fists. "We can remove it, right?" The vet nodded. "But once it's off, they'll know someone helped her let them," Kyle said. "She's not going back. I'll fight whoever comes." The girl opened her eyes again. "No fight, they strong, they erase. Erase us all." Suddenly, the door buzzed. Not a knock, not a visitor. It was a signal, a coded tone from a military transmitter. The vet's face turned pale. "They've locked onto her position. We've got ours, maybe less." She began packing supplies. Tools, medical kits, food packs. Kyle looked around. "Where do we go?" "There's an old station in the forest," she said, "abandoned since the war. No signals, no scanners. We can hide there for now." Kyle lifted the girl gently. She winced, but didn't cry. She looked at him like he was her only light. He held her close. "She's not a thing to be erased. She's a child, a living being." The vet nodded. "They don't care about that. They care about what she proves, that someone broke laws, made hybrids. Crossed lines no one was supposed to cross." They stepped out of the vet shack, just as a silent drone flew past above the trees. It didn't stop, didn't scan, but its red eye blinked 3 times and then disappeared. Kyle looked up at the sky. He knew it wasn't over, not even close, but he also knew something else now. He wasn't just saving a life. He was protecting a truth, and truth always brings enemies. The forest was dark and heavy with fog as the vet's rover rolled over the broken path. Branches scratched the sides of the old metal vehicle. Inside the rover, Kyle held the alien girl close. She was still weak, but her eyes stayed open. She whispered things he couldn't understand, but her voice was growing stronger. Dr. Harris sat in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel with one hand and a scanner in the other. "Signals gone quiet." She said, "They don't have a lock, but they'll come to the last known coordinates. They always do." Kyle looked down at the girl in his arms. "Hang on, we're getting you somewhere safe. Just stay with me." The girl blinked slowly, then whispered, "Safe" again. A small smile touched her lips. They reached the old station, hidden deep inside the forest. It was covered in vines and moss. It's a forgotten bunker from a forgotten war. Dr. Harris kicked open the door and led them inside there. Dust everywhere. Old wires hung from the ceiling, but the walls were thick, and the scanners showed no signals inside. "We'll rest here for a while." The vet said, "No one will scan this place. It's shielded." Back when Earth was still fighting interstellar raids, Kyle laid the girl down on a blanket. She curled up like a scared child. He sat beside her, never letting go of her hand. That peace didn't last long. Just an hour later, a low hum began outside. A dropship landed quietly in the trees. Black uniforms stepped out, 3 armed figures, each one with no badge, no flag, no name. Just numbers on their sleeves. One of them held up a scanner. "She was here." Signal ended. "Here, they're close." Kyle heard the noise first. He peeked through a crack in the bunker wall. His heart dropped. "They're here. 3 of them. They're looking for her." Dr. Harris grabbed her tool bag and pulled out an injector. "If they take her, she won't survive. You know that they don't rescue. They erase evidence." Kyle nodded. His hands were shaking. He had never held a weapon before. But now, he picked up a metal rod from the wall. A broken antenna. His grip tightened. The door banged open. Up returned the asset, and no one gets hurt. The voice was cold, empty, not a request. A warning. Kyle stepped in front of the girl. Dr. Harris stood beside him, her hand hidden behind her back, gripping the injector. The door shook again, then a laser started cutting through it. Sparks flew. The girl sat up with fear in her eyes. "No, please, no more cages." Kyle turned to her. "You won't go back, I swear." The door exploded inward. The 3 agents stepped in with weapons raised. Kyle didn't move. He raised the rod like a shield. "You don't have to do this," he said. "She's just a child. Look at her." One agent stepped forward. She is not a child. She is an experiment. She belongs to the program. Dr. Harris threw the injector at the same moment. It hit the nearest agent in the neck. He dropped instantly. The others raised their guns, but before they could fire, something strange happened. The girl screamed, but it wasn't loud. It was deep, like a sound wave that made the walls shake. The agents staggered back. Their visors cracked, their hands covered their ears. Light burst from her skin, her veins glowing like fire under ice. Her eyes turned white, and every object in the room lifted off the ground. Then silence. Everything dropped at once. The girl collapsed. The agents were unconscious. Kyle rushed to her, held her tight. She was breathing alive, but drained. Dr. Harris looked at the mess. She's awakening. She's more than even they knew. Kyle nodded. We have to move. This place isn't safe anymore. They'll send more. The vet looked at him. We're not running anymore. It's time we find out where she came from and who else they're hiding. The girl opened her eyes one more time and whispered a single word. Sister. Smoke still hung in the air of the bunker as Kyle packed what little they had. The alien girl lay curled in a blanket, breathing slow and shallow. Her outburst had drained her, but it had saved them. Dr. Harris wiped her glasses and looked over the unconscious agents. We need to move again, she said. They'll send stronger units next time. This was just a recovery team. Next will be cleanup. Kyle lifted the girl gently. She stirred. Her eyes opened just enough to whisper one word again. Sisters. He looked at the vet. You heard that right. There are more like her somewhere. Dr. Harris nodded. And if she escaped, maybe the others never did. She could be the only one left, or just the first to wake up. They loaded into the rover and drove away from the bunker. Trees blurred past the windows as the wheels rolled over roots and cracked stone. They didn't speak for a long time. The girl finally broke the silence, her voice shaky, her words scattered. Cold tanks, wires, pain, others scream, then fire, then nothing. Kyle turned in his seat. You remember the lab? She nodded. Big glass tubes, doctors with no faces. They talk numbers, not names. Dr. Harris gripped the wheel tighter. Military research labs, probably hidden in asteroid belts or dead moons. No oversight, no laws. Kyle looked at the girl again. You weren't born, they made you. Why? The girl blinked. Mix blood, human and not. See what happens. Make something new, strong, obedient, useful. Kyle felt sick hearing those words. You're not a thing. You're a person. They don't own you. The girl smiled weakly. I know now because of you. They reached an abandoned relay station, one of the old, deep space listening posts. Dr. Harris typed a code into a rusted keypad. The door opened with a groan. Inside was dusty but safe. Old screens still worked, shelves lined with emergency rations. It was the perfect place to regroup. The vet turned on a console, tried to trace old transmission logs. I might be able to find where she came from if they didn't wipe all records. The girl sat beside her, staring at the flickering screens. She reached out, tapped 3 symbols on the alien keyboard. Suddenly, a map blinked to life. Red dots scattered across distant systems. But one blinked brighter, a signal weak but still there. Dr. Harris leaned in. That's it. That's where they are, or were. Kyle looked at the girl. You found them. Your sister's still alive. The girl nodded. Sleeping, maybe. Still in tanks, still alone. Kyle stood up. Then we go get them. Dr. Harris raised a brow. You want to attack a black site facility with no weapons and a half-working rover? Kyle didn't blink. She didn't ask to be made. They didn't either. If no one tries, they'll be erased like her. The vet sighed. You're crazier than I thought, but I'm in. The girl stood to her legs, shaky but firm. She looked at Kyle, her voice steadier than before. You gave me name. I want name. Kyle smiled. He thought for a second, then said, how about Luma? She repeated it. Luma, then nodded. It is mine now. Dr. Harris, check the map again. If we leave tonight, we might reach orbit in 6 hours. I can hack a shuttle from the junkyard hangar near zone 3 inches. Luma touched the screen again. This place, bad place. But sisters, wait, we go. Kyle wrapped a scarf around her neck. You don't have to go back there. "I do," she said, to wake them outside in the shadows of the dead forest. A different kind of drone hovered silently, its lens zoomed in on the signal map, its data stream sent a message to an unknown receiver subject located target designation, Luma. Status, active protocol override authorized. The old shuttle roared to life with sparks bursting from its side vents. Its engine had not flown in years, but Dr. Harris made it work using spare parts and stubborn skill. Luma sat quietly in the co-pilot seat, staring ahead with calm eyes. She had changed. She was stronger now. Not just in body, but in spirit. Kyle strapped himself in behind her. He looked at the stars above, and then at the blinking red dot on the stolen map. That dot was their goal. The place where her sister still slept in frozen tubes, still forgotten, still waiting. Dr. Harris shouted over the noise. "This ship wasn't built for stealth. If we're tracked, we won't outrun them, so we stay low, fly silent, no transmissions." Luma reached out and touched the controls. The ship hummed gently under her hand. The old systems flickered once, and then aligned perfectly. Kyle blinked. "How did you do that?" She answered softly. "Part of me remembers they taught us machines. They wanted obedient pilots, obedient minds." The ship lifted into the night sky, leaving smoke and ash behind. Below them, the ground faded into darkness. Above them, space opened like a black sea full of threats and silence. For hours, they flew in silence. The stars drifted by. Kyle watched Luma, her eyes closed, her hands steady on the controls. She didn't need rest. She was focused like a compass, finally pointing home. Suddenly, an alarm blinked on the dashboard. Dr. Harris cursed under her breath. "Tracking beam long range, barely detectable. But someone has eyes on us." Kyle leaned forward. "What now? We're already in the air. They'll shoot us down." Luma turned toward him. "No, I blocked them." She reached for the console, closed her eyes. The lights around her flickered, then dimmed. Her skin glowed faintly, like before the tracking beam stopped blinking. Dr. Harris stared. Did she just short-circuit a military-grade beam with her brain? Kyle nodded slowly. "She's more than a miracle. She's a revolution." They flew onward. Soon the stars changed. They approached a dead moon, orbiting a red gas giant. No lights, no signs of life, just an iron-gray surface full of silence. "There," Luma whispered. She pointed at a cracked ridge along the moon's surface, a hatch hidden. Dr. Harris landed the ship near the rocks. Dust swirled. As the engines powered down, they stepped outside in suits and walked toward the hidden door. It was cold, too cold for anything natural, but the door opened at Luma's touch inside. Metal halls stretched into the dark. No guards, no alarms. Just silence, like a graveyard. They walked slowly, their steps echoing through the empty space. Then Luma stopped. A large chamber opened before them. Tubes, rows and rows of glass tubes, each one holding a girl like her, some smaller, some older, all sleeping. Kyle gasped. "There's dozens of them, dozens of Lumas." Dr. Harris scanned the room, vital signs weak but alive. They'd been frozen for years, no power to wake them. Luma stepped forward. She raised her hand and pressed it to the control panel. She closed her eyes again. Her glow spread through the wires, through the walls. Through the tubes, one by one, the lights turned green. The chambers hissed, glass lids opened, steam rose like morning fog. The girls began to move. Kyle watched in awe. They opened their eyes. Each one looked at Luma. Some cried, some reached out. None spoke. Luma turned to Kyle. "They are scared like I was, but now they are free," Dr. Harris whispered. "What now? We can't carry them all, and the system that made them is still out there." Kyle looked around the room, then back at Luma, then back at Luma. "Then we teach them, show them they have a choice. We protect them, all of them, from above." Deep in orbit, a dark ship hovered, watching, recording, waiting. A voice echoed in a hidden chamber. "Phase 2 has begun." The chamber was filled with soft breathing and the hum of old machines waking from sleep. Luma stood in the center, surrounded by the girls who had once shared her fate. Some were barely conscious, others clung to her arms like lost children. Their eyes were wide, their bodies thin. But inside each of them, something had survived. Kyle watched them all from the corner of the room. He saw hope. He saw fear. He saw what should have never been made, but now could never be undone. Dr. Harris adjusted the old power relays, keeping the life support system stable. Their vitals are climbing barely, but it's working. Luma turned slowly, her voice calm but firm. They need warmth, shelter, time to remember who they are. Kyle stepped forward. You saved them. You gave them that chance. Luma looked at him. There is more to do. The ones who built this place will come, not to help, to erase. Dr. Harris walked to the nearest console. Her fingers flew over the keys. Then we give them something to remember. We broadcast the truth. Let the galaxy see what they tried to bury. The screen lit up with encrypted channels, footage from security logs, experiments, notes, scans of every girl in every tube. Kyle stared at the data. Each file was a crime. Each name a secret no one wanted exposed. Luma walked toward the transmission panel. She placed her hand on the surface. The room dimmed. Her light pulsed through the walls again. The screen blinked red, then green. Transmission sent. Across the galaxy, screens lit up in military bases, in government halls, in hidden research labs. The truth had been set free. But so had something else. The dark ship in orbit began to move. Its engines roared as it descended toward the moon. Inside it, black-armored soldiers prepared to land. Their orders were clear: retrieve the primary subject. Neutralize all witnesses. Kyle felt the ground shake there. Here, what do we do? Luma turned to the other girls. She spoke in a language only they understood. One by one they stood beside her, some weak, some still trembling, but all willing. Dr. Harris handed Kyle a transmitter. I linked it to a defense drone in the crater. One shot, use it when you see their ship. Kyle nodded. He climbed to the highest level of the lab. Through the broken ceiling, he saw the dark vessel coming fast. He raised the transmitter and waited inside the chamber. Luma raised her hand. Her sisters raised theirs to energy shimmered in the air, not violent, but strong. Unified. The soldiers broke through the entrance with weapons drawn. But they stopped, not because of fear, but confusion. They were facing something they didn't understand. Girls standing tall, glowing, not fighting, just being. One of the soldiers lowered his weapon, then another. The lead officer shouted, "Hold your ground. They are assets, not people." Luma stepped forward. Her voice echoed, "We are not yours. We are not experiments. We are not silence." Kyle saw the ship begin to turn. He pressed the trigger. A beam of light burst from the crater. It hit the engine. The ship tilted and crashed into the distant rocks. No more reinforcements would arrive. The soldiers began to fall back. Some dropped their gear. Some just ran. Luma turned to her sisters. Now we choose. Dr. Harris asked, choose what? Luma looked at Kyle at last. We choose who we want to be, not what they built us to be. Kyle smiled. Then let's build you a home. In the weeks that followed, the lab was turned into a shelter, a school, a safe place. The galaxy kept watching. The truth had already spread, and people came, doctors, teachers, volunteers. But most of all, hope came back. Luma sat under a quiet sky one evening, Kyle beside her. She held a drawing one of the younger girls made. It showed a home with sunlight and laughter. She held it close and whispered, "We are not broken. We are becoming," and for the first time, her journey felt like a beginning, not an escape.